Back in 2013, one man copied more than 1 million secret government documents and just handed them over to the world. He exposed the largest global surveillance system ever built. His name, of course, is Edward Snowden. And what he did ignited a firestorm of a debate that is still raging today. So, what's the deal? Was he a hero standing up for our privacy? Or was he a traitor who put national security at risk? Okay, let's get into it and unpack one of the most polarizing stories of our time.
And this quote right here gets to the absolute heart of it, from Snowden himself. You see, he wasn't saying all spying is bad. His fight was with what he called dragnet mass surveillance, this idea that governments were secretly scooping up everything on everyone all the time. But before we can really understand his actions, we have to understand what exactly he found.
All right, so before we talk about Snowden himself, let's talk about the machine he uncovered. And this wasn't just, one single program. It was this massive, layered system designed to capture pretty much all of the world's digital chatter. Okay, first up, Prism. Now, this program was wild because it was so direct. It was basically the NSA's front door access to the big tech companies that run our digital lives. We're talking Google, Apple, Facebook, you name it. Through a secret court, they forced these companies to hand over user data. Think about that. Your emails, your video calls, your private chats. They weren't breaking down the door. They were basically handed the keys to the front gate. But okay, what if you don't want to bother with the front door at all? Well, that's where Upstream comes in. This was a totally different beast. They went straight to the source, these giant fiber-optic cables that are basically the internet's superhighways. They physically tapped into the undersea cables and switches that carry data between continents, making a copy of, well, almost everything that flowed past. It's like putting a giant tap on the entire river of global internet traffic. So, you've got Prism and Upstream just hoovering up a mind-boggling amount of data. Now what? How do you even begin to sort through that ocean of information? You use this, XKeyscore. The easiest way to think about it is like a Google for spies. Apparently, an analyst could just type in your details, your email, whatever, and pull up your entire digital footprint. We're talking emails, search history, social media, all of it, often without needing a warrant first. Just a terrifyingly powerful tool. And all of this leads to a pretty big question. Who was the person who had the keys to this whole kingdom? Who exactly was Edward Snowden? Well, if you look at his career, you can see him getting deeper and deeper inside the intelligence world. He kicks things off with the CIA back in '06. Then he jumps to the private sector, working as a contractor for the NSA. And by 2013, he takes a job at Booz Allen Hamilton. And this is key. Sources say he took this job for one reason: to get his hands on the documents, the proof of everything he'd seen. But, of course, that's not the official story, not by a long shot. This here is a page from the U.S. government's official review of the whole affair, and they painted a very different picture. They described him as a disgruntled employee, a, quote, serial exaggerator and fabricator, not some principled whistleblower. And right there, you have the two completely opposite versions of this guy. So whatever you believe his motives were, Snowden decided it was time to make his move. And what happened next, honestly, it sounds like something straight out of a spy movie. And it all comes to a head in a hotel room in Hong Kong. The plan was as simple as it was insanely risky. In May of 2013, he literally just walks away from his entire life and flies to Hong Kong. He calls a few journalists he trusts to his hotel room, and over the next few days, he hands it all over, a massive trove of classified files. And just like that, the world's biggest secrets were no longer secret. You can imagine, the fallout was instantaneous and massive. The U.S. government launched a huge investigation to figure out the damage. This is the actual cover of their official report, stamped top secret. This shows you just how big of a deal this was. They considered it one of the single most damaging intelligence leaks in U.S. history, ever. So the secrets are out, and overnight, Edward Snowden becomes arguably the most wanted man on Earth. His next move was a desperate dash for safety, but it took a bizarre turn that I don't think anyone saw coming. So picture this, June 23rd, he gets on a flight from Hong Kong, headed for Moscow. The idea was to fly through Russia to get to Cuba. But while he was literally in midair, the U.S. government cancels his passport. Boom, he's stateless. He lands in Moscow, can't board his next flight, and suddenly he's trapped. A man with no country, just living in an airport terminal. 39.
Days. That's how long he was stuck in that bizarre airport limbo. Can you imagine? Finally, Russia steps in and grants him temporary asylum, which, just threw a whole lot of gasoline on the geopolitical fire. And all of this brings us right back to where we started. That huge, central question that exploded the second his name hit the news.
The two sides of this debate, they could not be further apart. So you've got the hero camp. They say he exposed programs that were flat out unconstitutional, that he sparked real reform, and that he pushed us all toward using better, more secure technology like encryption. Then you have the traitor camp. They argue he caused, quote, tremendous damage, that he broke his oath, blew the cover on vital intelligence programs, and handed America's enemies a treasure trove of secrets.
And here's the government's take straight from the House Intelligence Committee. They said Snowden caused tremendous damage to national security, and the vast majority of the documents he stole have nothing to do with programs impacting individual privacy. Basically, they're saying, look, the public good he might have done is tiny compared to the massive damage he caused to our ability to defend the country. But then you have groups like Amnesty International, and they see the exact opposite. For them, this wasn't a crime. This was a public service. They say Snowden blew the whistle on human rights abuses solely in the public interest. In their view, he did what he did because he felt he had to in the face of this massive secret system. So, look, no matter where you land on the whole hero or traitor thing, one thing is absolutely undeniable. What he did changed the world. Period. Let's just look at the actual concrete legacy of what happened in 2013. And the impact wasn't subtle either. It was immediate and it was huge. You had new laws like the USA Freedom Act, which specifically outlawed the kind of bulk phone data collection he exposed. Tech giants like Apple and Google basically went on the defensive, rolling out super strong end-to-end encryption to protect their users. And it wasn't just in the US. The whole world started talking about privacy, which led to big things like the GDPR over in Europe. But here's the twist. That same official report that called him a traitor, it also revealed something pretty embarrassing, that even 3 years after the leaks, the NSA still hadn't fixed a lot of the security problems that let Snowden walk out with the documents in the first place. It showed that the problems inside the NSA were way bigger than just one guy. And so that leaves us right here with this incredibly difficult question. On one hand, you have real tangible changes, new laws, better technology, a global conversation about privacy. On the other, you have these dire warnings about national security. So, which is it? Do the good results make up for the damage done? Is there a point where you have to break the law to serve a greater good? That's the impossible question Edward Snowden dropped on the world's doorstep. And honestly, we're still trying to figure out the answer.